Wow, I'm really rusty. Sorry, I'm so bad at this. Let me look. My name's Hunter. I am your host, and this is episode number 14. It has been an incredible amount of time since I've last podcasted. I think it's been since March of 2018 since I last podcasted or since I last uploaded. I believe I created an episode, I don't know, maybe in April or May of the previous year, but I didn't ever upload it, and I don't really know why because it's been so long. But it's now July, and I believe it's, what day is it? It's July 31st. July 31st. It's almost August of 2019. Um, I'm super rusty at this, and I don't have a lot to show you. It's been crazy, but I thought I would just kind of pop on because I have been so dormant from doing this. So I thought I might as well just kind of pop on and let you guys know what's going on, and hopefully I can try to do this more often, but I don't really know. So basically, the reason, I guess I'll explain, beginning with the reason why I haven't podcasted in so long, and that really has been because of finishing grad school. As many of you may know or might not know, I was in grad school here in Chicago, Illinois, where I live, going to school and getting my master's in museum and exhibition studies. And this past May, I graduated. So I've been graduated now for a couple months, about 2 months, and it's been crazy because up until then, the last year really was insane. And I guess I wasn't prepared for it. I thought I knew what it was leading up to, but the last year really was just kind of like job applications, just everything kind of was coming together, and it was a lot to handle. So my making kind of took a backseat for quite a while, and it kind of made me sad because I am someone who really finds joy from creating, and doing something with my hands really helps me express myself creatively. But during this kind of crazy time, that was the last thing that I needed to take on, was another project. And whenever I did have a free time, it was spent writing. And I literally, kid you not, I wrote probably for 6 to 8 months every day for hours. So that was really what has been happening the past year. And so you haven't really missed out on a lot when it comes to the making aspect, which is why I'm here, because this is where I want to share with you what I've been making, what I'm thinking of creating, what's kind of on my mind, my inspirations, and hopefully you find that enjoyable. I also love to kind of bring in my own personal life a little bit into the story, kind of tell you what I'm up to, because that is what kind of reflects into what I make and why I'm making. So thank you for bearing with me, and if you are still subscribed, still watching, still returning, I applaud you, because I would be annoyed if I hadn't uploaded in so long. But with that, I thought I kind of created a few notes. So if I look down over here, that's why I'm consulting my notes. But I thought I would kind of talk about a couple of the things that I've made recently, because I know that's kind of what this is for. And then after that, I will move into kind of what I'm thinking of making or what I want to make now that I have a little bit more time, that I'm done with school, and also have kind of a little bit of my creative juices. They've been revitalized. And then I thought I would kind of then talk a little bit about, at the very end, about kind of what I did in grad school, since that was a huge part of my kind of experience the past year, well, 2 years, but really the past year, and the reason why you didn't see me. So I thought I'd maybe go over a little bit of what I was up to, share with you my thesis, which I'm really proud of. It's also very creative work and has to do with kind of the fiber arts and making. So I don't think it's irrelevant, but some of you came here just to look at knitting and making. So I'll do that first, and then I'll move on to what I want to make, and then move on to kind of some life updates, and then hopefully that will be it and not too long. So let's get started. So first, what I've made, like I said and prefaced earlier, I didn't really create a whole lot during the past year, really year and a half. So I did though recently kind of regain my knitting mojo. I kind of spent the past 2 months like just taking a deep breath and revitalizing my mental health and personal health and everything, and now I've kind of been able to revitalize my mojo of making. And so I had a few socks that I started literally last Christmas, so 9 months ago. I created, so I made some yarn, and I created this colorway just with some sock yarn. It's kind of crazy now, but it was just kind of like a neutral base with green and red speckles throughout. Kind of reminded me of candy canes or twinkling lights, just kind of Christmas colors. And so I made this literally 9 months ago, and I created some socks, and I 2 days ago just finished these. These are 2 socks in my Christmas colorway, I guess. They're really fun. They kind of striped like candy canes, and so they're really fun. These are just basic vanilla socks, and I did a 1x1 rib, a pretty like decent what is this called? Leg. Wow, I'm really rusty. I did a fish lips kiss heel, and then just a basic, I started toe up. I always start toe up. I don't know why, just makes it easier for me. So I have pretty big feet, so these look really weird, but I made 2 of them. They're woven in. It is very hot here in Chicago. If you hear the AC unit, I'm sorry. I'll try to do this quickly, but it's really hot out. So, but yeah, these are done. So that was exciting. I really liked the way that they knit up. I knit them on US 1 needles, which is 2.25, I believe. I believe they were Hiya Sharps. I knit them circular, magic loop, and this is 60 stitches. I don't really know why, but I have extremely loose gauge. Whenever I knit something and I'm having to gauge swatch to get gauge, I almost always start with 2 needle sizes less. So I don't know why, but I do 60 and it fits my foot. I also like a tighter sock. I don't want them to really be loose, so that also is something. But yeah, these are done. Really exciting. And that was living in when I was working on it, in my bag that I made. This is a little my project bag that I made myself. This is waxed canvas that I waxed myself. This is some hand-dyed fabric that I speckled in this kind of unique way. This is like a linen, and then the inside's this really fun pop of kind of neon lemon yellow. So yeah, that's where my socks were living when I was working on them, but they're all done. The next thing, this I started literally a year ago. I don't even know when, but I just kind of was in the middle of knitting, and I thought, oh, I want something to work on, and I have nothing really to work on. But I had started this hat. This was just like a slouchy hat, probably a year ago. I also had used some of my own hand-dyed yarn. I am not a huge fan of this, to be honest. It's kind of like pinky, black, purple, gray speckles. It's not my favorite. I think if it were more vibrant, I would like it. But it came out a little bit more dusty. This is a pretty good representation of what the color looks like knit up. I think it knit up really beautiful. I love how it didn't pool. It's just really all over speckled and variegated, which I love. I just made this pattern up, really. I just did probably like 5 inches or so of 2x2 ribbing, and then I just knit in around and around with circular needles. I believe I used a US 3 needle, which I don't know what that is in millimeters, and then I just decreased every 6 stitches, would knit 2 rounds, and then decrease every 5 stitches, knit 2 rounds every 4, 3, the 2, the 1, and then the last 2 rounds I knit 2 together every round, and then I just used the needle to kind of tie them all together on the end. So I can put this on if you want. It's super hot. Also, I don't really know how good I look in like a slouchy hat. I think it looks kind of cool, but I probably would wear it, to be honest, most likely with the brim like this, and it'd be a little bit more tight, just because I have a really small head and I feel like I look weird with a beanie, but probably wear it like this most likely. This is a knit with fingering weight yarn, so it's not necessarily the most thick, but also here in Chicago it is quite cold all the time, but there's definitely times when you need a hat, but a really thick hat is not necessary. So this will be a nice kind of like fall or maybe intermediate weather hat. I really like it. I just don't know if I like the color a whole lot. I might actually experiment with just kind of like over dyeing it, and I have if it were a little bit more vibrant, I think I might like it more. So either might try to make it more vibrant, make it maybe a little bit more of that pink red color, or I will make it brown and just like make it funky. I don't really care, but it's not bad. I also probably have enough to potentially make another one, since this was like not, I have no clue how many stitches. Anyways, that's done. I haven't photographed it. I want to put that on Instagram or something soon, so that still has to be photographed, whatever. So that's really all the knitting I've done. I have another project that I've shown a few times the past episodes that I literally have not worked on in a year. Like, I've not even touched it. It is a sweater by Michelle Wong. I'll put the title here because I literally don't remember it. It's made out of Cascade 220 in a heathered colorway. It's kind of mustardy yellow. If you look on my Instagram, you can see it. It's all over textured and cables. I don't know what row I'm on the sleeve. I have the full body done to here. It's worked bottom up. I have one sleeve, and then I need to do the other, but I don't know where I'm at, and I just need to think about that, and I don't really want to do that at the moment. Plus, it takes forever because it's all over texture, and it's one of those things that maybe I'll work on later, but at the moment, not right now. And sorry, that was like what I'm making, but I'm doing finished objects. Sorry, I'm so bad at this. Let me look. Next, I have 2 quilts that I've made that you have not seen before. One of them was for a class. I believe I might have even like talked about it in a previous episode, or maybe that was the episode that I filmed but didn't upload. I don't remember. But I created a quilt for a project slash the series, or the kind of message behind the quilt was basically what my master's thesis was about, and it was about political quilting in America. And I created my own political quilt for a class that was based on dreams, and I created this quilt. This is all hand-dyed fabric that I did. It's an American flag, and all of these pieces of fabric were hand dyed, and then they were sewn together, and then on top of that, I asked the question, what are your hopes or dreams for future America? And then they responded, and then I screen printed them, I screen printed them using a kind of unique technique onto the surface of the flag. So this is like actually people's handwriting. So it's fun because you can see different handwriting and different what people say. I photographed this and also added a little bit of information about it on my website. If you go to hunteratha.com, you can look that up under the quilts page. But yeah, that was something I did. I also made it. I put in grommets, so that was fun. And then I hand quilted, just kind of randomly. So that's something I made. It's kind of hard to show here, but I thought it was a really unique project that I was pretty proud of. I incorporated it into my thesis, which I'll talk to you a little bit about later if you want to stick around. But yeah, that's about it for finished objects. Moving on to things that I've worked on, I have another quilt that I finished, and it's basically done. I just haven't bound it. I haven't really finished quilting it, but I've actually used it not finished. I've taken it to the park and kind of sat on it because it's pretty big. So for my thesis, a little bit of backstory about this quilt. For my thesis, I created an exhibition, or a proposed exhibition catalog. And for the cover of the catalog, I wanted to create a quilt and photograph it. And the title was Changing the Fabric of Society, Political Quilting in America. And I created this quilt solely just to be photographed for the cover of the capstone, or for the catalog. So I hand dyed, using an ice dyeing technique, some fabric, and it actually is gorgeous, the pattern. But yeah, this is how pretty it came out. I really wanted it to pop on a cover, and I really liked this kind of texture. But then this was the back, and then this was the front, and let's see, this is it. You can't really see it all, but it says, I did this applique, Changing the Fabric of Society, and then I just straight lined, kind of matchstick, machine quilted on my domestic machine, all over it, and then I stitched around each letter. So that was fun. I mean, it looked really good on the catalog, and I can link below the catalog if you want to look at it. It's I believe it is 98 pages. It is really informative about political quilting in America. I've not really seen anything like it, so I was pretty proud of it. I'll talk about that later, but just to give you a little context. So that's it. I haven't finished the edges. It's like this. Also, this side still has the batting sticking out. The back I used just kind of random pieces of fabric. And so I just need to bind it, and it's done. But I've actually already used it. Because I spent so much time making this look good for a photograph, I was like, I don't want to just throw it in my closet. So I decided to use it. And I mean, I don't really care if it gets dirty or anything, because it was meant for a photo. It did its use, and now I want to be able to use it for something else. So I've taken it to the park to sit on and read and do some work, so that's fun. And it's a nice size. It's much bigger than a towel or something that I normally would take, so it's kind of nice to have a quilt that I can just throw on the ground and not really worry about it getting dirty. So that's that. I already talked about my other work in progress, which is that Michelle Wong sweater, which I referred to earlier. I don't remember the name, but that's just kind of put on the back burner. Um, and then I guess like let's move on to, since I don't really have anything else to talk about that I'm working on. Oh wait, not true. Rewind. I do have one thing. I created and I believe I've shown this on the podcast before. I had started many years ago, like maybe 5 years ago. I don't remember, but I had started an Afghan in my college school colors that I had just kind of worked on randomly for fun, and then I had nothing. I had finished my socks and my hat, and I didn't really want to work on my sweater, and I had nothing else to work on, so I just pulled it out, and I'll show you. This is my Afghan that I've been working on. It's very large. It's probably like 6 feet wide or more, and pretty long, but I thought, as I still have this. This is made out of literally super saver red heart yarn from Michael's or Joann's, and it's double this. Well, it started out with the black, and it's double crochet, and it's about 6 feet wide. It's like very large. It goes black, then maroon, then yellow gold, and then gray. And then I just recently was like, oh, I'm kind of bored of just doing plain, so I decided to do granny stripe. So it's just simple crochet 3 and then skip 3. So I did that, and now I'm going back to black. I just thought, oh, like, why not? This can just be a fun, like, little throw on the couch kind of blanket. I mean, as I still have yarn, so I thought might as well just like make a big blanket, because why not? But so this is something I was just doing the other day while watching Netflix or TV, so it's kind of fun. It's very large. Like I could use this for a full-size blanket to sleep with so far, but I'm just gonna keep going. So that's something I've been working on, like really randomly, not really like it's not perfect. The ends are kind of weird. Like I feel like I've accidentally added a lot of stitches, and I don't really know why, because I'm not the best. Like I know how to crochet, but particularly with the ends, when you turn, I always kind of forget how to do that, and I just kind of fudge it. But it looks good, so that's that. So that's really all I have to talk about, to be working on, but I do have a couple projects that I am wanting to make, and this is really exciting because I feel like I have revived my knitting mojo, or let's just say my crafting mojo. At the end of once I graduated, it took me probably 3 weeks to just sit and literally do nothing, to just kind of like go from -100 to 0. So then I went from like so past empty just to like 0 empty, and then it took a few weeks to just kind of like get back up to to go from empty into a little something. So in that time I spent a lot of time kind of debating, since I was not working. I don't have a full-time job yet. I'm still kind of looking for work and applying. I had time to just kind of think about what I wanted to make, and I really got the itch to start creating. So I had some sewing projects that I wanted to start working on, which I'll talk about, along with some knitting. I started kind of like rewatching some podcasts, which is kind of what made me want to podcast, since I hadn't done that in a while. So a couple of plans that I have. I created a cardigan maybe probably 4 years ago. Probably about 4 years ago. 2015, maybe 2014, 2015. That was called the Antonia sweater, and that is by Julie Weisenberger. It's on Ravelry. It's a pattern that is a basic cardigan that can be adapted for a male or a female, just depending on if you omit or insert waist shaping. So I'd made that out of, it's a worsted weight yarn, and I made it out of Malabrigo Rios, I believe, in the VAA colorway, which is like a very dark green, almost black sometimes. So it's very dark, and I wear it like it's definitely the most worn handmade thing that I wear. Besides shawls or hats or something, like the garment I've ever made, just because it's so wearable and it fits really well. And I've always wanted to make another just because I wear it so much. And because there's so, I wouldn't say there's few, but there's just so many more knitwear patterns for women's bodies or for people who want to dress like that. And I have always thought about maybe adapting some, but this one works. It's simple, and I can wear it. I could make it look nice. I can kind of wear it casually. So I wanted to make another one, but I was just kind of thinking like, what colors of sweaters I don't have, and I don't have really any neutral browns or tan. Like I have colors, and I have black, lots of black, but I don't have anything neutral that's not a pop of color. I have like very big, bright pops of color. I have like a neon yellow, chartreuse. I have an orange, like a very vibrant orange. I have blue. But I thought maybe I would wear like a tan, beige, not beige, but like tan or brown kind of colored sweater. So I thought, let's do it. I bought, and it's in the mail right now, but I bought like 8 skeins of worsted weight yarn that I'm going to dye up, since I don't have the money to just buy the yarn that I want. I would love to work with indie dyed yarn. I really want something that's not solid. I don't want something solid. That just kind of bores me when you're knitting. But I do think tonal with a little bit of speckle would be kind of fun. I've wanted to make something speckly, but with a tonal base. So I'm thinking of creating a tan kind of tonal base yarn, maybe with a little bit more like gray spots, like, but definitely either I don't know if I want to go warmer brown or like more gray brown, but I want to go brown. And then I was thinking spots of darker brown, and I have a really beautiful dye that's kind of a not saffron, but a paprika kind of color, rusty red, that could be really beautiful in speckles, I thought. So I'm gonna do some test dye pots just kind of to see what I like, and then I'm thinking about dyeing up all of those skeins to make an Antonio sweater. And that for my size, it's gonna be about 1,150 yards of worsted weight. So that's probably like 6 to 7 skeins of worsted. And I bought a few extra just in case. And also I won a few extra because why not? And they were on sale, so I'm gonna do that. Another project that I thought of making is hats. I wear a hat every day in the winter because it's so cold here in Chicago. You really need, I mean, you have to have a hat really, unless you have like a hooded coat, which I do, but I wear the same one really all the time. I have a Carhartt hat that I wear that I bought from the store that I wear all the time. It's in a maroon color, and I wear it literally every day. I have a few handmade hats, but they are not that warm because they, like I was saying with the other hat, there's holes in it, and for Chicago, the wind, I mean, it gets so cold that like you almost need to double up on hats. So I was thinking about just making another hat for like that kind of in between, and I was looking at the Oslo hat by Petite Knits. It looks very much like my Carhartt hat, where it looks very ready to wear or like made from a store, and that's maybe why I liked it, because it looks like that, but it would be handmade with fingering weight yarn. So that's something. And then I also was thinking about a shawl design, not not designing it, but a shawl. But have made I have a few shawls that I wear a lot, but I don't have that many. I think I have three that I wear on the regular. I have made a shockwave shawl, which is humongous, and if it's not that cold out, it gets a little bit hot. I have a dotted raise that I made out of DK weight yarn, which I really enjoy because it's like not that big, so it can really be thrown on. I wear that quite a bit. And then I also have like a really small kind of handkerchief, neckerchief shawl that's made out of fingering, that's not very big, that is a great fall weather. But I don't know, I feel like I only have three that I really wear. I did make this. This is another dotted raise that I made. And this is just yarn I bought from, I enjoyed knitting it so much that I thought I would make another one a little bit bigger. This is like Lion brand yarn or something. I don't even really remember, but I knitted it and it looks really nice on the back of my couch. So that's kind of where I keep that. I don't really wear it because it's just really thick and big, and it's not like the nicest. I mean, it's acrylic, so it's not really the nicest feeling. I would rather use my wool ones, but I still get a lot of use. It looks beautiful. Also, if I get cold ever on the couch, I just kind of like use it as a shawl. I was thinking, I love Stephen West knits. They're so fun. They're not necessarily that difficult, and I'm thinking about, I've wanted to make the exploration station for so long. I just know that I would need a lot of colors of yarn, and that's something that I'm just like, I can dye them myself, so I could do that. Or the Vertices Unite, that's one that I've seen a lot of podcasters working on, so that could be a fun one. I don't know. We'll see. Also, so many people, as I've been watching in previous podcasts, since I'm just kind of like catching up, a lot of the ones from like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, we're making the No Frills sweater by Petite Knits, and that I think could be definitely worn by a male or myself. It looks really cool. I don't know if I would incorporate the mohair or not, but I feel like it could look really cool marled with two different yarns. I think that could look really cool, and I don't know. It's just because it's fingering weight, and I'm like not a very petite. I mean, I'm not small. I'm not large by any means, but I'm much larger than a petite female. So the yardage and amount of knitting would definitely be much more. Plus, I would want it to be definitely have positive ease quite a bit. So I don't really wear very tight sweaters. So that could be something, since it's just stockinette. But I don't know. So that's what I've been thinking about making. That's really it for the knitting part. You are welcome to stay around and listen to a little bit more about kind of like what's been up in my life, and kind of a little bit more about what I was doing the past year and a couple months. But if not, thanks for joining, and hopefully I'll see you soon. If you do want to stick around, I thought I would just kind of like get you a little bit more caught up on what's been going on. I remember a year ago I was wanting to podcast, but I felt like stressed in the fact that I hadn't made anything. And I know I've talked about that before, but like if I wasn't making something, I felt like there was no point in me talking to you because I would just be blabbering, which is kind of what I'm doing now. But at the same time, it's sometimes necessary. And so I just didn't do that. And then in the summer, I was working like 3 or 4 jobs, and I didn't really have time. All the time I did have, I wanted to just kind of relax, and knitting was not necessarily something that I wanted to just jump on to. And then once I got back into school, the second year of my master's program was much more rigorous than the first. We were doing a lot of projects in school along with our studying. I also worked 2 jobs. I worked full-time. I worked part-time as a graduate assistant in the Global Asian Studies department, and then I also worked at the MCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, doing some work there. So I was really working 2 part-time jobs plus going to school full-time and then doing work at school for my classes. I was basically being a contracted museum worker, doing exhibition planning, content strategy, programming, public outreach, engagement, all different types of things for other museums that were outside of class time that I still had to work on. So I really was just overwhelmed with kind of what I had to do. Plus, all the while, I had to be working on my thesis. So then as kind of school progressed, my thesis became more pertinent because it, I started to have deadlines and I needed to really start creating and executing these ideas that I've had for about 2 years. And so in the end, my thesis, I really started putting, probably in October of 2018, I really started making a lot of progress on my thesis with writing. So it was really like an 8 to 9 month process of like when I mean constant writing, I mean like literally every day, 6 to 7 days a week. I would go to a coffee shop and I would write for class, for projects, for my thesis. And so in the end, I came up with a title, Changing the Fabric of Society, Political Quilting in America. And that, let me don't have the catalog, the published catalog, because I actually gave those away to 2 of my committee members, and I still need to get one for myself published. But this is kind of part of my thesis. This is like, a lot of pages. But I also then had to write, along with my catalog, I wrote an actual thesis that I went and was submitted. So it ended up being about 128 pages, which was like a lot. It was a lot of writing, a lot of work, a ton of research, and a lot of revising. But basically, I'm looking at it as I kind of go, just so I can give you accurate information. But the exhibition really was about, this was kind of my mock-up. This was like where the quilt came from. And then basically I created an exhibition that spanned the time of kind of quilting in America, and it was through the lens of looking at quilting as a political act and as the quilt as an object that's political and has kind of politicality to it. I created an exhibition that spanned hundreds of years in looking at multiple different types of communities, particularly marginalized communities. And I wanted to look at quilting as not just a medium that predominantly women did as just like as a hobby or as craft or to show handwork, but really as a way that voices could be heard, ideas could be shared, action, protest. I was looking at it from a very political standpoint, and so I really found a lot. This was a really cool way of looking at history through many different intersections, and there was a lot of intersectionality between women and gender studies, race, critical race theory, labor, LGBTQ issues, men in craft, looking at craftivism or activism with craft, looking at politicality with the rise of the internet and the blog sphere, and there was just like so many movements that this really was pertinent and was crucial as a part of. So I looked at that was like kind of my thesis overview, and then I created an exhibition. The exhibition has, I believe, had over around 50 objects of both quilts, ephemera, which would be letters, first-person oral histories, interviews, papers, different pamphlets, photographs, actual objects that went along with the quilts or supported and gave context, It was really fun to do that. And I kind of broke it down into 3 different categories. Um, my first was called Red, White, and Blue, and I was looking at categorizing different quilts that all kind of use this red, white, and blue theme, whether it was like patriotic or whether it was just purely through the kind of formal elements using red, white, and blue hues. I kind of paired them and looked at them in conversation with one another and how that it could support or give contrast to other quilts, and using all different types of time periods in there. The second portion of the exhibition was dualities of repetition, and those repetitions are looking at not just repetition in creating and like in through quilt blocks and stitch motifs and patterns, but also repetition in history, and how something maybe from the antebellum South is now and can be seen almost repeated into our Black Lives Matter movement, or issues of race in the civil rights era, and things that kind of have been repeated or can be seen as repetitious. So I looked at that through that kind of lens of repetition. I focused a lot on the Gee's Bend quilters of Alabama and their work, which is just absolutely fascinating. If you don't know about them, their work is incredible. This is one of the quilts of the Gee's Bend quilters. That one's called Wild Goose Chase from 1930. Another one of the Gee's Bend quilts, this is called Basket Weave. Very fun, a lot of repetition. And then the third section of the exhibition was titled Democracy Work in Progress. And this is where I really was looking at quilting as a democratic way of kind of sharing your voice, of protest, looking at an image right here from the Women's March in DC, looking at Johnny Kimber's I Can't Breathe, looking at, thinking about Eric Gardner and his murder, women's rights, the AIDS quilt, all sorts of things. So I really was looking at a lot of this, and I created an actual catalog which not only described the exhibition and showed all of the work, but it also gave context to the work, and there was interviews with people from the communities. So it took a lot of work, and then I wrote the thesis to go along with it, which was kind of the process of why I did this, what literature and research I did to support this, kind of how this would live beyond just an exhibition, but potentially teaching at different conferences about women's and gender studies, and using art as a way of activism, all sorts of things. So that took up a lot of time. I'm going to leave the link to my issue version of the catalog. You can look it up and view it for free. I'll leave that in the description below. But yeah, so that was a lot of rambling, but it's something I'm very passionate about, and I find so interesting because not a lot of it hasn't. It's conversations that are talked about, but the way in which I kind of was able to weave in different aspects together has been something that I was very proud of and spent a lot of time working on, and so I was very relieved to finish. There definitely are still errors and corrections, but I was like, I don't even know if I like literally was so empty, I couldn't even think about it. So that was something I did. That was a really big milestone in my life. And I, since graduating, have been just applying for jobs. I'm looking for work here in Chicago in art museums, particularly looking at museum education, public programming, museum interpretation, maybe a little bit of curatorial work that kind of merges into interpretation. So I've been interviewing and kind of looking at places, but I'm hopeful that there will be something that will pan out in the near future. So that's really exciting. but I haven't been working a lot. I've been working part-time, but like very part-time, not very often. So it's given me a lot of time to kind of just think and reflect on what I want to do with my time, and kind of why I think that's why I've been kind of revitalizing my craft mojo. So I've really been interested in sewing some outfits, some fashion. That has been really inspiring. Painting has been really inspiring. I finished a few paintings that I'd started throughout this year. Painted 2 paintings. I want to quilt. I just feel like I want to do everything now that I have the time to breathe and think. Reading fun books. I've read a few books since I've been done with school. The first book was The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. Fantastic book. It also takes place in my neighborhood, like on my street. It's crazy how relevant it is to at least my life. But it's also a book that transcends location. It's a wonderful story. I also have been reading another book about the inception of the rainbow flag for gay rights and LGBT, and how that's kind of turned into the LGBTQ plus symbol for this community, for this large community, which is crazy to think that someone had to create that or had to kind of come up with that. So it's really about the inception, creation of that, and all of the context behind that, and the AIDS epidemic, and so much interesting information that so few people know about because it's not commonly taught in schools. It's not really commonly talked about. So I've been really diving into a lot of queer history and LGBTQ history as well, to fulfill portions of history that were kind of left out in my education. And I've been really it's been very gratifying to fill those kind of holes with where I can start to kind of piece together myself information, and so that's been really interesting. Other than that, I'm just kind of blabbering right now, so I'm gonna probably close it up, but I just want to say thank you again so much for lasting this whole time. It's been so long since I last podcasted, and I feel really bad that I've not been able to create any more content, but I also know that for my own mental health, it wasn't necessarily the right time. So I'm really excited to be hopefully back on the wagon where I can do this a little bit more often. Hopefully I'll be able to make things more, it's still hard since I don't have really a job with income to be spending money on material to make, and that's kind of my big roadblock. I would make a lot more if I had the means to do so. So hopefully in the near future I will be able to make more, and I will be able to share that with you. I want to just thank you again for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you in the near future. If you've lasted this long, thank you. If you want to, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. I would appreciate that, just so the next time I do upload, you'll be notified if you like the bell. And then also follow me at Pitchfork Fiber on Instagram. That's where I'm most active with that info. With any info, I share different things there, so definitely check me out there. And with that, thanks again for joining. I hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy making, and I'll see you soon. Bye.